Hi everyone, my name is Jay. Welcome to another episode of Hackmastering Roll20, where we learn to play Hackmaster, the greatest RPG ever made, on Roll20, everyone's favorite virtual tabletop. And today, it's down to the nitty-gritty. We're looking at combat, specifically attack and defense, which is really the heart and soul of any combat. You're going to be doing a ton of these, and I have them macroed for efficiency. In fact, this is pretty much what spawned this whole thing. People were asking for macros and tips on Facebook, and instead of just simply replying with a few samples, I decided to take 3 months to make these videos. It took longer, but hopefully you found some of the other stuff interesting too. Alright, so let's get into the basics. I've tried to record this a few times, actually going in an initiative order, but you know what? Forget that. We can just do some examples here. Keep in mind, these macros are for monsters. Player characters will always go off of their own sheets. The players will click on everything themselves. They won't work if I click on my macros on them unless I went onto the character sheet and added the fields that I have for the monsters. In my experience, however, what that really means is I will forget about that and I'll try to make a saving throw for someone at level 6 and it'll still be using his level 3 stats. So it's best just to leave player stuff to players and monsters to monsters. So let's take a look here. Where are we starting off? Let's start with a good old-fashioned basic attack roll. Let's say it was this Noel's turn here. There's Mr. Noel. And he is going to make an attack roll against Stig. So I have all of these macros down as buttons on the bottom. They're all kind of cut off on the screen, and I've tried fiddling around with this to make them more visible, but it just wasn't happening. But let me show you how a basic attack macro looks in my game. I'll hit attack, and boom, he got a total of 7, and 15 damage. He penetrated, you can tell because of the green aura. Well, okay, he penetrated, but didn't really do much penetrating. And he only rolled a 2. So that was on a 2. So the first thing you'll notice, obviously, first off, it's got the purple, and it's got the attack and damage. It's all nicely listed. That's using their default template setting. There's actually a whole bunch of different templates people have made for different game systems, and they have different graphics and stuff. This is just the default. But you can see, like, there's this is for D&D 5th edition. This is for World of Darkness. It would certainly be cool if someone with the know-how would be able to make a style guide to let us have our roll templates be in these fonts with these colors. It's something beyond me, but it'd certainly be cool if someone could do that. All right, but anyway, the thing that most people are probably going to talk about is the fact that you can see both the attack and damage on here. I'm rolling both of them at the same time, and a lot of people probably won't like that, but I've dabbled doing it either way, doing an attack roll, doing a defense roll, and everything, and there's a couple of reasons that I've put them both into one. First is to save space on macro button real estate. There's only so much space in the bottom without having to use the slider. Also, it saves time. If I've got like 15 kobolds or 8 goblins or something, if I'm rolling attack and defense for each of them, it just takes a much longer. The other thing is people are going to complain that players can react to this, and in my experience that's actually not a bad thing. I've run multiple thieves in my games and cleric of risk, and luck points and spending honor and things never really seem that good when you have to do it before seeing what the result is. Let me explain. Basically, normally in the rules as written, if you want to spend luck or something like that, you have to do so before. Like if someone rolls an attack roll, like if you're rolling your defense, you have to basically decide how much you're going to add on to that before anything else happens. And what I found when we were using those rules is no one would ever spend any luck. Like it was one of those things that either they would roll poorly and think, oh, I have to spend so much luck or honor or whatever to make this a good roll that it's not even worth doing. I would just blow through all of it in one shot. Or it's like I rolled high enough that, I'm not going to spend anything, okay? This way, seeing both at a time, they can actually see like, ooh, maybe I'm not going to get enough, that's a lot of damage, so maybe I will spend some luck. Things like that. And it's really not affected my game in any bad way, and it's just made things go by a lot quicker. In my experience, your experience may vary. You could take you could make it 2 separate rolls. It's all up to you. So let's see how the macro looks. I will have all of these copy pasted down in the description, so you can just copy them off there. So the attack macro, template default, that's what just gives it the purple, top and everything. Name equals selected token. You notice it says Knoll attacks. It would also say like Goblin 1, Goblin 2. It attacks with its d20 plus its attack value, and it does damage equal to its damage value from its character card. So that's pretty self-explanatory, right? All right, so let's get into some more basic things. So let's say that Stig dodges that, and then Stig is making an attack back at the Knoll, okay? So the Knoll needs to roll a defense. And let's say he's got a shield. So I have a defense macro button. I'll press it. Boom. It's a lot of 7s. Okay. Same deal. He's rolled a 7 now for his defense, and it's showing what his damage. Well, he's actually rolled a 5, but and it shows his damage reduction is 6. So again, some people might be like, "Why are you giving this much information away to the players?" And again, my answer is usually it doesn't matter that much. After a while, everyone knows what DR a goblin or a stock orc has, basically. The only time it really matters is when it's something that has like a differing damage reduction due to silver or magic weapons or stuff like that, or if it's like a really strange damage reduction. I'll just put a question mark in the monster stats then, and put the information in the details, and then I can check it myself later. But also it kind of helps remind me, as a GM, I've got a lot of stuff to keep track of. There's a lot of weapons that are armor piercing, like a mace and a battle axe that do extra damage if the defense is 5 or higher. And half the time I totally forget about that. But your players that have a battle axe will never forget this. So anytime they see the DR6 listed, they will happily remind you, which in turn can remind you to use it against them. So it's really a win-win. And again, it saves time because it puts the DR right in my face, and I don't have to look up the monster stats every time they're hit. Especially when you're playing in a combat with a lot of mixed enemies, if there's a boss or something like that. The only negative is sometimes if there's like a 1 leader type whose DR is mysteriously 1 point more than everyone else's, they'll kind of have an idea that, hey, that guy's got special treasure armor. But then again, they're going to loot everything anyway, so what does it matter? Okay, let's say, however, that this... Oh, and let me show you how that actually looks. So defense. So it uses the same template. Knoll defense, and the defense is d20, and damage reduction equals its damage reduction. Really basic stuff. But let's say Mr. Knoll here did not have a shield instead. Any monster listed with shield use as an ability, if using a shield, has a d20 defense just like anyone else. If they don't have a shield, then it goes down to d20 minus 4. Although technically, depending on their weapon skills, they might get a d20 on the first attack and then a d20 minus 4 and everything else. But whatever. So let's just say this is a standard shieldless defense right now. I have a shieldless defense button. I'll press that. Boom. He defends with no shield. In fact, he got better this time. That's just how things work. Yeah, I actually rolled a 10. But you can see there's a whole bunch of extra gobbledygook in there. So let's take a look at the actual macro. Okay. Template default, yeah. He defends with no shield, and you'll notice it actually says with no shield on there. Make it, obvious for everybody. And what's happening here is the interesting part. So, this came up recently on the Kenzerco forums. It's important to note, when you are not using a shield, your defense die is changed to a d20 minus 4. It is not a minus 4 penalty to your defense roll. It physically, like, imagine you have a physical d20 minus 4 in your hand. And what? That's just a d16, you might say. No, it's not. A d20 minus 4, because a die can only ever have a minimum of 1. It's always at least a 1, regardless what you get. Means that when you roll the die, you have the option of rolling a 1, a 1, a 1, a 1, a 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 16. There's much greater chance of rolling a 1. Not a natural 1, so it's not a fumble, but a 1 just in general. So a d20 minus 4 is actually considerably worse than just getting a minus 4 to your penalty to your defense. In addition, though, it can't go... Well, actually, no, it's not worse. Sorry, I misspoke. It can't go negative, right? It's always at least a 1. So if you roll a 2, then instead of it being negative 2, it's just 1. Does that make sense? So the way this works on here is I have it rolling a d20, minus 4, of course, and a d1. And then it will keep the highest 1. That's the KH, keep highest 1. So if I roll a 2 and I end up with a minus 2, that means I have rolled a minus 2 and a 1. And it will keep the highest 1, which is the 1. So that's how we work around that, so that these rolls will always be accurate. And to be honest, I only recently updated this for my home game like 3 weeks ago. So I've been using it for something else for a while now, and then I just realized, oh yeah. But that really helps. And the final defensive macro, let's say Mr. Knoll here was surprised instead. Then when he goes to roll his defense, I have a defense special button. And what that button does is it lets me just enter in what die I'm rolling. So if he's rolling a D8P for defense because he's surprised, then that's what I will roll. Now, of course, when you're surprised... rolled it on the wrong thing. All right. Of course, when you're surprised, you also don't get any dex bonus or anything. And this macro does not take that into effect. However, it's for monsters, and monsters usually don't have that listed anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. Man, 7s and 8s all around. What did he roll? He rolled a 6. That's acceptable. And that works just by exactly the same as any other macro, except instead of putting a d20 for the die, just put D question mark. Well, actually, let me show you. Defense special. It's D question mark and then modifier 20, which means it can be a maximum die of 20. You're not going to be rolling a D30 or anything like that. Okay, so that covers most of the basic things here. But look at Baradin over here. He's, like, let's say in this second, he moves up 10, and then we'll EOT him, okay? Let's move to the next second in combat. Okay, well, let's get back onto here. Next second. All right, and now Baradin moves another 15. He's ready to attack this goblin, and he's moved enough to make it a charge. So let's say he was actually doing a charge. I would use my charge macro. Except, as I said before, these macros don't work on player characters. I don't know what I'm thinking of. Alright, so let's reverse this. Let's say that the goblin is in fact charging Baradin. So let me hit the old charge macro again. Hey, that's better. Goblin 2 charges forward. You always got to put that descriptive text in there so people know what's going on. Attack 25. Holy crap. So he rolled an 18, and then plus 4 for charging. Plus 3, and then I put his damage, and then I put the other charging notes down here. No dex bonus to defense, double damage for knockback. Well, let's see, did Baradin get hit? What would Baradin have to say about this? He's always using an axe. He's an axe kind of guy. Baradin rolled a 15. No, he got hit. He got hit for 6, so that counts as 12 for knockback, regardless of damage reduction. But that's not enough to knock back a medium-sized creature, so it doesn't really matter. Those are the basic ones, but there's a couple of other things. Let's say Baradin then hits Mr. Goblin for a bunch of damage, which he is often going to do. Let's just see. Where's Baradin here? Let's see his axe damage. 11. So he hits this goblin for 11. And this goblin only has 19 hit points. Mr. Goblin, let's see, let's roll your defense. So yeah, they have a DR of 2, so he took 9 damage, which is enough for a Threshold of Pain check. So, Threshold of Pain is another macro that you're going to use a lot. This one I do have actually Whispering to the GM. I've been using it as public knowledge during my games most of the time, and I've been finding the players are kind of working around it a lot, so I have recently moved that one. So I'll just click Mr. Goblin, hit Threshold of Pain. Goblin, he makes his TOP check. He rolled a 4. He needed to roll equal to or under a 6. So actually, he made it pretty good. Otherwise, you have to do the math on your own. If I roll something else, man, this goblin's a hero. Okay, I would have to do the math myself. So I exceeded it by 7, so that's essentially 35. I look at what's second run now. It's 9. That goblin, it's that guy, is 35 plus 9, so it will be 44 when he goes again. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've heard conflicting reports. My players claim they can't see when these monsters are going or what the monsters' names are, but I have also heard them specifically run tactics based on seeing these numbers. So I'm not exactly sure how much they can see or not. I think maybe they can see the tokens and the numbers, but not the names. So just always be careful with how much information you're putting out there. But again, in the long term, it doesn't really matter. So since that guy is topped, I might bring out a lovely little Threshold of Pain token. Stick that on him, just so we know. I used to, again, recently up until like last week, my plan for Threshold of Pain creatures was just to turn them over 180 degrees. So if they're upside down, then they're Threshold of Pain. But recently, with a combination of lanterns, like holding lanterns on their tokens and having light come off of them, and knights using mounts which have to turn in certain degrees, facing of the tokens has become really important. So now we're going to start using these Threshold of Pain tokens, which are essentially ones that Jolly Blackburn posted pictures of on the Kenzer & Co. forums, and I basically have just made tokens out of them. So not only that, also if something dies, you always have the option of just doing the old he's dead Jim like that, or you can bring in a dead token in the same manner. Dun dun dun. Like that. I think that covers everything. Let me just double check that I haven't missed anything. Yep, that's about it. So these are my combat macros that I use that do not require any scripts. Next episode, I'm going to cover things like scampering back, aggressive attacks, fighting defensively, all that kind of stuff. Those I have set up to actually use some API scripts, and they do some pretty interesting things, so you'll want to check that out. If anyone has any questions, comment on here. If you like what you see, give it a like. Share it around any role-playing sites. People are always looking for information on Roll20, or might introduce Hackmaster to someone. All right, so until the next time, have a good game.